It was just after dawn when a grocery store employee noticed something odd. A car parked at the far end of the lot. Unmoving, coated with dew, its windows fogged from the inside. At first, he thought someone had simply left it overnight. But the closer he got, the more his stomach tightened. The more the air around him felt wrong. He called police, expecting a routine check. A welfare call. Maybe someone sleeping inside. But when officers opened the trunk, everything changed. Inside that confined space lay the lifeless body of a woman whose disappearance had shaken her family just days earlier. No struggle outside the car. No signs of forced entry. No footprints leading away. Only silence. And the truth waiting to be uncovered. What investigators would soon discover is that this wasn't the work of a stranger hiding in the shadows. This wasn't a robbery gone wrong. The person responsible was someone she once trusted completely. So the question is, how does a private relationship, one built on affection, secrecy, and promises whispered away from public eyes, end here? In a trunk, abandoned at dawn, with the truth sealed beside her. Fade with a chilling final line for the hook. This is the story of how an affair meant to stay hidden ended in blood. Before her name appeared in headlines, before investigators opened that trunk, she was simply known as Claire Matthews. 34 years old, a woman with a steady job, a close circle of friends, and a reputation for showing up when it mattered. Claire grew up in a small, quiet neighborhood, the kind where everyone knew each other's routines. She wasn't loud. She wasn't dramatic. Her life was guided by small, steady choices, the type that build trust rather than attention. Her coworkers remembered her as the person who made the office feel lighter. She always kept a spare umbrella for anyone who forgot theirs. She organized birthday cards. She volunteered at a community center on weekends, helping elderly residents with errands. To most people, Claire was the definition of reliability. On weekday mornings, she left her apartment just after 7. Same tote bag, same quiet smile. She walked the same route to the bus stop, greeting the same security guard at the corner store. Her life had rhythm, a pace she rarely stepped out of. And then, there was Michael Turner, 43 years old, married, well-liked. Michael held a stable position at a regional consulting firm, the kind of job that made him appear dependable, steady, safe. People described him as calm, patient, the reliable one in group projects and neighborhood gatherings. But very few people knew that inside his home, his marriage had been eroding for years. Arguments behind closed doors, distance growing room by room, and a man who felt more like a visitor in his own life. To the outside world, he carried himself with confidence. Inside, he carried a restlessness he told no one about. Their first meeting wasn't dramatic. No sparks flying across a movie set. Just two adults attending a professional development seminar at a downtown conference room. A place full of polite handshakes, lukewarm coffee, and scripted introductions. Claire sat near the front, taking notes like she always did. Michael sat 2 rows behind her, watching the speaker, occasionally glancing her way. Their first conversation was about something simple, a comment about the presentation slides, a shared laugh about the bad audio system. No one in that room would have guessed how far that moment would eventually take them. Over the next few weeks, they exchanged casual emails. Work-related at first, then a little more personal. Lunches turned into late afternoon coffees. Late afternoon coffees turned into messages sent at hours when most people were asleep. They told themselves it was harmless, just companionship, just 2 people understanding each other in a way others didn't. A subtle, chilling pause. But both of them knew what they were stepping into, and both stepped anyway. What neither of them realized was that the very first text between them, a simple, ordinary message, would one day be printed, enlarged, and entered in a courtroom as Exhibit A. At first, Claire and Michael's connection lived in the small spaces of the day, moments most people would overlook. A shared elevator ride after the seminar. A quick exchange in the lobby. A message that began with, "Hope your morning's going well." But those messages didn't stay simple for long. Soon, their conversations stretched past office hours, then past midnight. What started as companionship gradually shifted into something they both knew they shouldn't be part of. They began meeting in places where no one would recognize them. Quiet cafes on the edge of town, dimly lit restaurants, parking lots where conversations took place inside a car rather than out in the open. Claire told herself it was temporary. Michael told himself it was what he needed. But the truth was simpler. Both of them were filling empty spaces in their lives, hoping the other person could hold together things already falling apart. Their late-night calls became routine. Long pauses, whispered frustrations, promises neither truly believed. For Claire, it was emotional companionship. For Michael, it was escape. It wasn't long before signs of trouble started showing. Michael began asking to know where she was, who she spent time with, why she didn't respond quickly enough. What had been gentle curiosity turned into expectation. Claire pushed back more than once. She told him she didn't want something that required secrecy. She told him she didn't want to look over her shoulder every time her phone buzzed. More than once she tried to end it. Messages saying, "Maybe this should stop," or "This isn't healthy." Each time, Michael pulled her back with the same reassurances. "I'll fix everything. Just give me a little more time. It's complicated, but I'm working on it." A low, weighted pause. Time passed, but nothing changed. By late summer, the strain was wearing Claire down. She had never been someone who lived in deception, and the constant hiding gnawed at her. Friends noticed she seemed distracted, sometimes anxious, sometimes unusually quiet. One evening, over a simple dinner with a close friend, she finally let the truth slip. Not everything, but enough. She said she'd been involved in something she regretted, something she wanted to end. She admitted she was tired of the lying, tired of the wait. Her friend asked what she planned to do. Claire answered with a calm she hadn't shown in weeks. "I think I need to come clean. I can't live like this anymore." What Claire didn't realize was that the moment she made that decision, the moment she chose honesty over secrecy, may have sealed her fate. By early autumn, the pieces of Michael Turner's life were slipping out of his hands faster than he could tighten his grip. His marriage, already fragile, had reached a point where conversations were replaced with silence. Finances were strained. Work performance had begun to dip, enough that his supervisor asked if something was wrong. Pressure pressed in from every side, and Michael had no answers. The only place he believed he still had control was with Claire. But even that control was starting to erode. He feared exposure. He feared losing his job. He feared his marriage collapsing in a public way. Yet what he feared most was the idea of Claire walking away and taking the truth with her. Michael wasn't just feeling overwhelmed. He was cornered. It happened on a Wednesday evening, the kind of day no one would remember for any other reason. But for Claire, everything built to that moment. She reached out to Michael with a message that was unusually firm. She told him she couldn't continue this. She said she needed closure. She said she planned to tell the truth to the people in her life, and if he wanted to repair anything in his, he needed to do the same. For Michael, that wasn't just uncomfortable. It was dangerous. He panicked. He flooded her phone with messages, first pleading, promising he would fix everything soon, then shifting to anger when she didn't respond fast enough. Claire didn't argue. She simply said she wanted to meet one final time and end things cleanly. Her last message read, "Let's talk tonight. I don't want this to drag on." That evening, Claire left her apartment just after 8 p.m. She didn't tell many details, only that she had something important to resolve. Her phone records show a brief call from Michael at 8:17. Then a message from her at 8:29 confirming the meeting place. A quiet parking lot near an office park they occasionally used when they didn't want to be seen. From there, the timeline narrows. CCTV footage from a nearby building captured her car pulling in around 8:40. A few minutes later, another vehicle, matching Michael's, appeared at the far edge of the lot. After that, no camera caught what happened next. But what is known is this: Claire never came home. The next morning, When she didn't show up for work and didn't respond to calls, her friends grew concerned. By afternoon, genuine fear had begun to set in. Ironically, and disturbingly, the first person to call and ask if anyone had heard from her was Michael Turner. What no one realized yet was that the last person Claire was ever seen with was also the first person to report her missing. What happened between 8:40 p.m. and 9:15 p.m. in that quiet parking lot is known only through timelines, digital traces, and the evidence left behind. But investigators were able to piece together a version of events that matched the final moments of Claire's life. Inside Michael's car, the argument began the moment she sat down. Witnesses later reported hearing raised voices echo faintly across the empty lot. Not enough to understand the words, but enough to sense the tension. Claire told him she was ending it. She didn't yell. She didn't threaten. She simply made a decision. For Michael, that decision was catastrophic. He felt everything collapsing. His marriage, his reputation, his carefully constructed image. He begged. He pleaded. And when she didn't change her mind, he lost control. It happened suddenly. No long struggle. No dramatic scene. Just a moment where panic overruled reason. And once that moment passed, Claire was gone. Michael didn't have a plan, not a real one. He acted in a frantic haze, driven by fear rather than logic. He placed her body in the trunk of her own car, wiped what he could, and drove it to a grocery store lot several miles away, a place he assumed no one would look closely. Then he walked back to his vehicle, drove home, and tried to pretend that nothing had happened. He deleted messages, cleared call logs, checked her social media as if he were just another friend wondering where she was. He even told a coworker the next morning that Claire must have taken a few days for herself. He acted normal enough that, for a short time, people believed him. 2 days passed. The car remained parked in the same spot. A resident who walked through that lot each morning finally noticed something was off. The windows fogged the same way, the position unchanged, a strange, still quiet around it. He reported it to police, assuming it was abandoned. Officers arrived shortly after dawn. They approached the vehicle slowly, checking for any sign of the driver. When no one responded, they opened the trunk. That was the moment the truth began to surface. And inside that car, investigators found one small, overlooked detail. A detail Michael thought he had erased, that would unravel every piece of the story he tried to control. The investigation begins quietly, almost methodically. Detectives aren't dealing with a random disappearance. They're dealing with a puzzle where every wrong move was made by someone who thought he was smarter than the system. And the thing about truth? Truth always leaves fingerprints. Key evidence, the digital ghosts he couldn't delete. The first breakthrough comes from the victim's cell phone records. Her last calls and texts all linked to him, right up until the moment she vanished. His phone pings place him in the exact same location. At the same time she went missing, something he forgot to mention during his first statement. Police pull nearby surveillance footage. Not crystal clear, but enough. Her car drives through a quiet intersection. Seconds later, his car appears, following closely. He denies it. The cameras say otherwise. Then comes the digital damning blow. Cloud backups restore deleted messages he thought were gone forever. They show arguments, emotional breakdowns, and threats of exposure. Detectives find his late-night search queries. How to wipe GPS history. How long before abandoned car is found? Can deleted texts be recovered by police? These searches paint a picture he desperately wanted to erase. Interviews and the stories that don't match. Friends of the victim come forward. One says she was planning to end the affair. She was finally ready to tell the truth. Another recalls seeing them arguing outside her workplace weeks before the murder. Meanwhile, his coworkers mention he showed up the next day. Quiet, unusually calm, but unfocused. One even remembers him saying, "I just have a lot on my mind. Things are complicated." They had no idea what he had done the night before. Piece by piece, detectives assemble a timeline he cannot outrun. The turning point when evidence talks louder than lies. Detectives bring him back in for a follow-up. But this time, the tone is different. The room is colder. The questions sharper. They lay out the phone records, the surveillance footage, the restored text messages, the internet searches, all side by side. He exhales, long and shaking. Then he breaks, not with a clean confession, but with excuses. It was an accident. She got upset. I didn't mean for things to go that far. She attacked me first. I panicked. Detectives have heard these lines 1,000 times. Patterns don't lie. People do. The case turns that day. The verdict, the courtroom where truth echoed. Purpose. Deliver the justice arc. The courtroom is overflowing. Not with sound, but with pressure. Every seat is filled. Every breath feels held. And in the center of it all sits the man who once believed he could keep two lives running in parallel, until one ended in tragedy. Prosecutors expose the motive, a life built on lies. During the trial, the prosecution makes one thing painfully clear. He wasn't a man overwhelmed by accident. He was a man cornered by the truth. They outline his motive with precision. Fear of exposure. The affair threatened his marriage, his job, his carefully crafted image. Emotional instability. The messages recovered, the witnesses, the late-night panic searches. Desperation. The meeting he insisted on, framed as one last talk. The story he tried to paint, self-defense, panic, a tragic mistake, begins to crumble in front of the jury. The jury decides, accident was just another lie. After days of testimony, the jury withdraws. Hours feel like days. When they return, the courtroom freezes. The foreperson stands. A single sheet of paper trembles slightly in their hand. Guilty. Not an accident. Not self-defense. Not temporary insanity. Guilty of a deliberate act, realistically. Second-degree murder, recognizing rage, intent, and consequence without premeditation. He bows his head, but not in remorse, in defeat. The victim's family approaches the stand. A mother who hasn't slept a full night since the disappearance. A sister who still texts her phone just to feel like she's alive somewhere. A father who looks 10 years older than he did a month ago. Their voices crack as they speak. Not about crime scenes or timelines or evidence, but about birthdays she won't celebrate, promises she'll never keep, and the hole her absence has ripped open in their lives. For the first time, he looks up, not because he cares, but because their words strip away the last shred of the illusion he tried to hide behind.